Welcome to the safe space. Hello, dear listener. It's good to have you here in this space of growth and reflection. Today we'll explore together one of the most important skills for our emotional health, though often one of the most challenging: establishing healthy boundaries in relationships. Take a deep breath with me for a moment. Just one complete and conscious breath. This helps us center ourselves in the present moment, where all meaningful change begins. Understanding boundaries, what they are and why they matter. Imagine your life as a precious garden. Boundaries are like the fences that protect this garden, not to isolate, but to clearly define what belongs in this space and what doesn't. They allow you to take care of what's yours, while making clear where your responsibility ends and others begins. Healthy boundaries aren't fortress walls, but flexible, semi-permeable borders. Like a cell membrane, they allow good things to enter and keep harmful things out. It's not about pushing people away, but creating more authentic and balanced relationships. Perhaps you grew up in an environment where boundaries were non-existent, where your needs were secondary, or where expressing discomfort was discouraged. If that's the case, know that establishing boundaries may feel strange initially, almost like learning a new language as an adult. Be patient with your process, recognizing when boundaries are necessary. Our body usually signals when a boundary has been crossed, even if our mind tries to rationalize. Have you ever felt that uncomfortable sensation in your stomach when saying yes, when you wanted to say no? Or that tension in your shoulders when someone keeps asking for more than you can give? These physical signs are like warning lights on your body's dashboard. Other signs include persistent resentment, emotional fatigue after interactions with certain people, or the feeling of being constantly overwhelmed with responsibilities that aren't yours. Allow yourself to honor these sensations. They aren't exaggeration or weakness. They're your inner wisdom communicating something important. Different types of boundaries. Boundaries manifest in various dimensions of our lives. Physical boundaries, related to your body, personal space, privacy, and physical contact. For example, how comfortable you feel with hugs, who can enter your room, or your need for alone time. Emotional boundaries protect your right to your own emotions and your non-responsibility for others' emotions. This includes deciding with whom to share vulnerable feelings and not absorbing others' moods or emotional crises. Mental boundaries respect your opinions, values, and thoughts. They mean being able to respectfully disagree and maintain your perspectives, even when they differ from those of people close to you. Material and temporal boundaries, related to your money, belongings, time, and energy. They include deciding how and with whom you spend your resources. Digital boundaries, increasingly important, they involve your online availability, response expectations, and how you allow technology to interrupt your life. The journey to healthier boundaries. Establishing boundaries is an ongoing practice, not a final destination. Like any new skill, it begins with small steps and improves over time. Let's explore this process together. Self-knowledge, the foundation of boundaries. Before communicating boundaries to others, we need to clarify them for ourselves. Allow yourself to explore these questions with curiosity, without judgment. In which situations do you regularly feel uncomfortable or exhausted? Are there specific relationships where you feel constantly drained? What are your fundamental needs for emotional well-being? What behaviors or situations trigger intense feelings of anxiety or resentment in you? It might be helpful to keep a small journal or notes on your phone when you notice discomfort in interactions. Patterns will begin to emerge, offering valuable clues about where boundaries are needed. Overcoming internal obstacles. For many of us, establishing boundaries awakens deep fears. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, or fear of not being loved if we're not always available. These are natural responses, especially if we grew up in environments where pleasing was equated with safety or love. If you identify with this, offer yourself compassion. Gently say, "It makes sense that this is difficult for me considering my history. Still, I can learn new ways of relating that honor both myself and others." Feelings of guilt frequently arise when we begin to establish boundaries. Remember, Establishing healthy boundaries isn't selfishness, it's self-responsibility. As the safety instructions on airplanes remind us, you need to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. The language of boundaries, clear and compassionate communication. Effective boundaries are expressed with clarity, calmness, and without the need for elaborate justifications. Here's a simple structure you can adapt. Direct statement of the boundary. Brief explanation optional. Clear consequence if the boundary is disrespected. For example, I'm not available to work after 6 p.m. Boundary. I need that time to recharge and be present with my family. Brief explanation. If there's a request after that time, I'll respond the next day. Consequence. Some helpful phrases for different contexts. At work, I need more information before I can take on this project. I can help with this tomorrow, but today my schedule is full. I appreciate your confidence in me, but I need to decline this opportunity. In personal relationships, I need time to process this before continuing the conversation. I understand you're upset, but I can't accept being spoken to in this way. I love spending time with you, but I also need time for myself. The key is to maintain respectful and direct communication without accusations or hostility. It's not about what the other person is doing wrong, but about what you need to feel good. Preparing for reactions. When you begin to establish boundaries with people accustomed to the previous pattern, it's natural to encounter resistance. Some people may feel confused, rejected, or even react with anger. This isn't necessarily an indication that your boundary is wrong, but that the dynamic is changing. Prepare yourself emotionally by anticipating possible reactions. Remember, others' responses to your boundaries are not your responsibility. You can offer clarity and compassion, but you cannot control how it will be received. If you face resistance, breathe deeply and calmly reaffirm your boundary. I understand this is different from what we're used to, and it may be uncomfortable initially. Still, this is an important boundary for me. Boundaries in the professional environment. The work environment presents unique challenges for establishing boundaries, especially in organizational cultures that value constant availability or being a team player at any cost. Start by identifying which boundaries are most crucial for your professional well-being. Perhaps it's not checking emails after a certain time, having clarity about which tasks are within or outside your role, or creating structures for more efficient meetings. Remember that establishing boundaries at work can actually increase your productivity and professional value over time. When you're rested, clearly focused, and not overwhelmed, your work naturally improves. Exemplify professionalism when establishing boundaries. For example, instead of simply saying, "I can't do this," offer alternatives. "I can't take on this project this week, but I could start it next Monday, or I can suggest someone who might be available now." Boundaries in close relationships. With family members and close friends, establishing boundaries can seem particularly challenging, as these relationships often have long-established patterns and implicit expectations. Start with small adjustments, not major revolutions. For example, if you've always been available 24/7 for a friend in crisis, don't suddenly disappear, but begin to define specific times when you're available for emotional support. Remember that establishing healthy boundaries can effectively strengthen valuable relationships, creating interactions based on mutual respect instead of obligation or resentment. With particularly challenging relationships or people who consistently ignore your boundaries, the concept of detachment with love can be useful. You can maintain compassion for the person while distancing yourself from harmful behaviors. Maintaining boundaries over time. Establishing boundaries is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice. Your boundaries can and should evolve as your circumstances and needs change. Regular reviews can be helpful. Ask yourself periodically, how am I feeling in my relationships? Are there areas where I consistently feel disrespected or drained? What adjustments would be helpful? When you notice a boundary has been crossed, address the situation as early as possible before resentments accumulate. A gentle but immediate response is usually more effective than an explosive reaction after weeks of contained frustration. Celebrate your progress. Each time you clearly express a need, each respectful no, each moment you honor your own boundaries is a significant victory that deserves recognition. Cultivating self-compassion on the journey. Establishing boundaries can trigger uncomfortable feelings, especially initially. Guilt, anxiety, and doubt may arise. In these moments, self-compassion isn't just helpful, it's essential. Practice speaking to yourself as you would speak to a dear friend learning this skill. It's natural that this is difficult. You're unlearning old patterns and creating new ones. This takes time, and that's okay. Acknowledge that there will be moments when you fall into the old pattern. Perhaps saying yes when you wanted to say no, or not expressing a boundary when needed. In these moments, avoid harsh self-criticism. Simply notice what happened, identify what triggered the pattern, and begin again. Integrating boundaries with connection. A common fear is that establishing boundaries will isolate us or damage our connections. In fact, the opposite tends to happen. Relationships based on authenticity and mutual respect, which includes healthy boundaries, are typically deeper and more sustainable. Clear boundaries create a safe container where genuine intimacy can flourish. When people in your life know that you'll honestly communicate your needs and boundaries, it often increases trust, not diminishes it. Remember that establishing boundaries doesn't mean building walls, but creating doors, clearly defined entrances and exits that you can open or close as needed. Closing, your ongoing commitment to self-respect. As we conclude our conversation today, I invite you to reflect on a simple but powerful commitment you can make to yourself. I commit to honoring my needs and boundaries as an expression of self-respect, not as an act of rejection toward others. Establishing boundaries is, in essence, a practice of authenticity. It's living from a place of integrity where your external actions align with your inner truths. This journey isn't about perfection, but about progress. Each small step counts. Each time you connect with your needs, each moment you express a boundary with gentleness but firmness, each time you honor your own well-being. You deserve relationships that respect who you are fully. You deserve professional interactions that honor your humanity. And you have every right to create the boundaries necessary to make this possible. Take one more deep breath. Feel the calm strength that comes from honoring your truth. This strength has always been within you. Now it's just a matter of allowing it to express itself more fully in all areas of your life. I am here, walking beside you on this ongoing journey of self-discovery and growth.